Welcome to the Standards Michigan Weekly Focus teleconference, where the door is open to discuss the week's work, but also we expand upon the underlying philosophy and strategies that guide that work. We schedule these open teleconferences at a time when the work week winds down, and when our more reflective discussions do not crowd our production calendars, which is what we do to write code and get votes in the middle part of the week. As Mike Anthony likes to say, writing code and getting votes is what we do to pay the rent. The fundamental currency of what we do is ideas, getting them supported with data and onto the agendas of technical and business standards development committees, more or less on an hourly basis. It is time well spent, however, looking backward upon the week's work before we proceed to the next. We always prefer that these Friday teleconferences be more of discussion and a lecture. We do post almost all of them on our YouTube channel, and we get about 50 views per week. Enough, we think, to meet an obligation to be open, transparent, and accessible, as well as open to challenges to our business model. So with that, let me introduce everyone on our call. First, we have Dennis Johnson with the University of Michigan. And Dennis, could you just explain what you do with us?
I'm a graduate student here at the University of Michigan at Urban Planning College and a research assistant for Mike Anthony. I deal with the videos and some of the research.
Thank you. And then we have Mike Toner in Los Angeles. And Mike, what have you been doing lately?
I'm a copyright consultant in terms of figuring out what we can use and can't use in terms of fair use, and I also edit videos.
Thank you, Mike. We, of course, have Mike Anthony with the University of Michigan, our lead on this project, and myself, Christine Fisher. Before I turn the call over to Mike, I would like to emphasize that almost all of our engagement in international standards is through U.S. tags administered by ANSI. Mike has made this clear in a 2012 article titled Why Standards Matter. This article is linked at the bottom of our Focus webpage. Now I will turn the call over to Mike Anthony.
Thanks, Christine. We didn't expect that there would be that we'd be numbering these international standards teleconferences, but when we saw how many viewers were on our June 19th coverage, 79 as of this morning, we had to rethink things a bit. 79 is about 3 times the number of viewers we normally get, and it's surprising because in addition to this being a rather dry and complicated topic, these teleconferences are not polished, nor do we really want them to be. We've chosen speed over polish because, at least in my view, the rate of regulatory and consortia action in business and technical standards is streaming, more or less continually, and you have to make choices among the resources you've got. So we're focusing on delivering value, and what we're doing is a little bit less education. We are always keeping the door open, though, always trying to be transparent and meeting the accessibility criteria that ANSI places before all standards developers, even though we're not a standards developer. So anyway, on Fridays, as Christine said, we'd like to open the door and reflect a bit. So again, we don't have much time for education or policy making. There's plenty of that out there. Policy is clear. Get those costs down. We don't need to jawbone that anymore. And we're coming out of the time of year when there's the annual lament over the cost of education. So we feel that our industry is one that can't afford to overlook any opportunity or existing mechanism to trying to manage those costs and to deliver value. So the far more difficult and specialized business of actually doing something is our guiding discipline. As you'll see during our monthly teleconferences, we have a few wins. During our monthly teleconferences, we try to recount what we've done over the month. It turns out that it's getting rather long because we are having, let's say, the spaces between code wins are getting smaller. So we're happy for that. But that can't persist, and we're certainly not at the scale we need to be at the rate of regulatory and consortia action. So anyway, that's the teleconference that we do every Friday afternoon, just after the U.S. Census Department does its construction report. So short of internal discussion with the people on the call, and I think we all know each other here, and I'll emphasize that we deliberately, as Christine says, we're doing this on a Friday afternoon in August, and we think it's a night. Actually, the atmospherics here are nice, at least in my view. It's somewhat relaxed, even though I can start to see little bit by little there's more students walking around campus. Do you get a sense of that?
Definitely.
You know, somewhere between Art Fair and Labor Day, the character of the town changes, and that's kind of what we're in right now. So we are at Ross School of Business, by the way, and I thought I'd tell you that we often have to make a choice between having a very good sound quality at our sound studios at the Duderstadt Center, or being within, being on campus and being among the students, what I would call the work point. So today we're at the work point, and we hope that whatever audio, you'll overlook some of the audio difficulties we often have. So let's get started, shall we? I wanted to start, take some lessons from private industry here, and let's get started with our friend. I'm just going to let this roll, and I think most everyone is able to see this, but what we're going to do is to increase the quality. We will splice in this particular video clip, and you'll just see me comment on this. I don't know if anyone remembers Mystery Science Theater during the middle 80s, but it was a show all about talking about somebody else's show. So that's what we're going to be doing here, and let's get started.
ASBIL は IEC と同じ1906年に
ASBIL was established in 1906, as was the IEC, and we have significantly contributed to automation, which is a cross-cutting technology. Standardization lies at the core of our business. It's the only way for different users to work with our technologies. I think there's a lot that we can learn from participating in standardization work, because past experiences and what is currently important are all part of standards. Through standardization, you can gain knowledge and learn what you need to be careful about. And standardization is very helpful in conducting current business, but it also allows you to identify new areas you could focus on. Of course, standardization is useful for technology innovation, but here I would like to emphasize the very direct and significant impact it can have on the way business is conducted. HVAC and energy management used to be seen as two separate things until they were integrated into a single standard. This fact alone has fundamentally changed how customers plan and budget for these technologies, and it has directly impacted on how they're now sold and installed. For ASBIL, this integration opened a unique business opportunity and allowed us to significantly expand our scope. ASBIL works closely with its customers in a life cycle approach. Our aim is to create value over a long period of time. Since all our work is based on standards, our customers not only benefit once. Instead, we're able to create value for them in a sustainable manner. Our work in standardization is crucial for this to happen. Today, the problems technology needs to solve are growing in size. We are no longer looking at a single building. Instead, we have to focus on whole communities. Now, many companies have to be able to cooperate on bigger systems. That's why you need a common language that connects different companies and technology areas, and that's what standardization supports. The value as well as the need for standardization will only increase. I think that standardization should be looked at not only as a technical tool, but also as a very important business tool. When you understand and participate in standardization, you're able to create new business opportunities, reduce waste, and achieve overall greater efficiency. From a top management perspective, when your company participates in the standard setting process, it can build business opportunities. That's simply not possible when you buy a standard off the shelf.
Okay, so what I like about our CEO of ASBIL, they actually, I believe they're into fluid components. They're really the tendons and the bones and the muscle of our HVAC systems. Is that he refers to he refers to a long-term outlook. I'll say, and we've said this before, that University of Michigan started this 20-odd years ago. At that time, there was no organized business and technical standards advocacy. To a large degree, that's not apart from what we're doing. It's still a condition that's present. Most of our industry's regulatory resources devoted to curriculum and other getting state money and such. So we had to take a long-term view, like many of these companies do. I think there might be some other companies, that maybe even other nations, have a different kind of outlook. People have been critical of the American system, where quarter-by-quarter numbers informs a lot of behavior. So there are other organizations that take a longer view, and we certainly believe that we've reaped the benefit of taking a longer view. It builds a stronger foundation when you do that. I like to say that we were usually dealing with about 40 issues per month, and they all have to be moved along. Sometimes they can only be moved a millimeter or an inch per week on a meter-long journey. But that's the nature of collaboration, especially when you're collaborating with competitors. That's why we have to take the long view. It's essential. We often just have to move things along little by little, and 3 to 6 to 9 years out, we reap the benefit, and that benefit is permanent. It doesn't go away. So further, he mentions something there about when you participate in standards, in these scaled-down democracies that standards meetings really are, you gain anticipatory intelligence. You're working with colleagues, even competitors. Everyone's, of course, is being very careful. You may be at the coffee machine, and you'll be talking and trading trade secrets, but you are often inspired by other people who are doing what you do. So there's no substitute for subject matter experts getting together, talking face to face, and people who are deeply emotionally committed to their technology. There's a way that intelligence gets transmitted that way. Finally, he mentioned that ASBIL was they were no longer looking at single buildings, but whole communities. And that's certainly the case with us. You probably, if you've been following our blog, you've seen a more frequent occurrence of smart campuses, smart cities, and the scaling up of controls within buildings to controls within cities. So that's a priority we talked about in a few of our blog posts. I hope you go there and take a look at some of them. Let's move on, shall we?
With the emergence of the Internet, the economy has expanded globally, and this trend will only accelerate. Business will always be global, and technology will always be used globally. If technology is not widely used, then it simply can't advance. Looking at the next 5 to 10 years, it becomes clear that contributing to global standardization will be a must for companies. Standardization is also very important for innovation, because today what you can do alone is increasingly limited. Business is becoming more complex. And while there are some things that you can still do on your own, more often than not, you need to collaborate with others in an ecosystem. Today, you need to keep the right balance and leverage standards to be able to participate in systems. This is a big challenge for companies, and it's also key to their success. It would be difficult to create a global standard yourself all the time. So sometimes you use a standard that already exists, or you contribute and collaborate with others to develop a global standard. I believe this approach allows you to advance more quickly and make better products. For a company, IP is a very important asset, but IP alone will not produce products. So I think it's important to use IP as a weapon to develop products based on standards. Of course, you need to continue to develop your core competencies, be unique, and create products that are widely accepted. Fujitsu was established in 1935, and we are celebrating our 80th birthday in 2015. But I think our attitude has not changed. We have always been centered on technology, and our products and services have aimed to be state-of-the-art. Fujitsu increasingly provides services through integration. As part of this process, we use our own products and services and combine them with those from other vendors. Through our core competencies, we are able to vertically integrate them and offer a total solution to the customer. I believe technology should not be limited to a certain region, but it should be globally accepted and widely used by many different people. That's why it needs to be standardized. It's the only way in which technology can contribute to society. And this is a key goal for Fujitsu. That's the reason why Fujitsu will continue to actively participate in the IEC.
For you. So again, it's a leader of a consumer product. I deliberately picked testimonials and from consumer product leaders. I don't know the degree to which you could say education, the education industry is a consumer product industry, but I know I have 3 kids of my own, and I know that it's an awful mighty consumer purchase. One thing that he brought up, which I thought was interesting, and it's something you run into a lot, is standardization. Instinctively you think, well, if you're all going to do things the same, doesn't that stifle innovation? It's a fair question, but when you get into the mix of it, you'll understand, as he said here, that you can only go so far with intellectual property. You're going to have to, if they're going to make that real and practical, in order to compensate the inventor with what's necessary to recover the investment and offer an incentive in terms of profit, then that technology has to be more widely adopted. What we call virally distributed adoption, something of that nature. And that's what standardization does. We could approach a very sensitive issue of what is a standards bachelor's degree? If I were to pose that out as a question, what does an international standard bachelor's degree? I think there are people working on it. I don't know if they're working in a structured way, or at least under the auspices of ANSI or ISO or any other member body to ISO. But I thought I'd put that out there. Also, he repeated what was said by our CEO from Asbill. What you can do alone is really limited. So, and you'll find that when you get very good at something, you have to collaborate with competitors. The path of leadership is often a very dim one, and you're often alone, and it's only lit by your competitors. As a father of an athlete, I know that my daughter very often became good friends with people on the other side, because no one had worked as hard as she did. So path of leadership almost always means you have to collaborate with competitors. So let's move on.
Toshiba was from the very beginning strongly aware of the need for standards. One of the founders of Toshiba was a member of the committee that led to the official inauguration of the IEC in London in 1906. But while the need for standards was clear, the importance of international standards was only understood in Japan once many companies started to go abroad, some 20 or 30 years ago. Before then, Japanese companies focused mainly on the home market, and they were able to do business without complying with international standards. But when companies wanted to do business in other countries, they quickly realized they couldn't sell their technologies because they weren't able to communicate and connect with others internationally. That's also where my own awareness of international standards dramatically changed. Now, more recently, smart communities are being built around the globe, and the need for standardization is further increasing. Companies need to innovate, standardize, and then develop their business while continuing to innovate. That's how business flows. I think there's a competitive relationship between standardization and intellectual property. I can fully understand if a company wants to internally retain the technology they have developed. But with this approach, such a technology may not be widely used, and eventually another technology, possibly even an inferior one, developed by a different company, could become the global standard. Therefore, if you have developed something good, then it makes sense for it to be standardized so that this technology can be widely spread and used, and in a very real sense. I think this is how business should be conducted. Originally, Toshiba was a manufacturer. We produced and then sold our products. Today, things have fundamentally changed. We're not just making and selling products or components. We're integrating them into larger systems and then offering services such as maintenance and repair. And because today, a system is created by many companies working together, standardization becomes absolutely essential. Without it, it wouldn't be possible to collaborate. The future world is a place where various companies will cooperate on increasingly large systems. If you have good technologies, you need to make certain that others can connect with them and use them. If you don't participate in standardization, then your technologies may not be able to spread. It may be difficult for your company to cooperate with others on these large systems. I believe we all need to contribute to standardization to be able to work together in the future.
Okay, a couple things. He mentioned that he believes we all can work together on this. This is one of the difficulties we have, is that everybody who is working and who's at those meetings are nearly always getting paid for it. Others who've heard us here on these calls and also on our website understand that incumbent interests, basically manufacturers, insurance, and labor enforcement, they're all getting compensated for being at the meetings. The one person who's not getting compensated for being at, or the one stakeholder that's not being compensated for being at those meetings, is that stakeholder who's actually buying all these good things. And that's the reason that we exist. So I think it's a fine sentiment there, but part of what we have to do is understand that the user owner final fiduciary, their absence here is going to have the consequences of all three of those CEOs identified by not being a stakeholder. So you will find one of these days we'll do a teleconference on who's actually on these committees. Trust me, what we're saying generically here generally is true. We can go into detail committee by committee, and you can see what's happening. So I think that the only other thing I wanted to say, and I wanted to close with an explanation of why I picked consumer product manufacturers overseas, and it has to do with how fast price signals get conveyed through economic spaces. And consumer products are generally receive very strong and fast price signals. That's not the case with infrastructure markets. Infrastructure markets, money moves in very large sizes and very slowly. And so it's hard to get price signals down through that. We believe that engagement in these technical standards and business standard process is the best way to get price signals deeper into the decision chain that goes about building a bridge or a school or a library. So that's generally a distinction that has to be made. Fast money getting quick price signals versus the money we have to deal with is infrastructure markets. And by engagement in these processes, the user can exert their influence. So we've spoken generically and very generally here, but I need to remind everyone on this call and others who will see this afterward that we have very specific cases that we deal with, say, 2 or 3 times a day. We could easily do 24 a day, but we pick 2 or 3 a day. And I encourage others to follow them. And if you're interested and you have the expertise and the time and the support, please let us know. So that's my usual request to get more engaged. So that's probably enough for today. It's a developing story. I'll mention that Christine will be adding another perspective of her own on September 18th. Is that right?
That's correct, Mike.
Is that right? September 18th? Did I get that right?
September 18th is correct.
Okay. Do you have, I think what you're going to be talking about is what standards engagement is with other nations?
Yes, we will be reflecting on the United States stature in international standards and how we, in some respects, compare to other countries such as some European countries as well as countries in Asia and in particular China.
Okay. Did you have any thoughts here? I have a few other things I want to say.
It was, well, no disrespect to the other teleconferences, this one was really good. I enjoyed the videos. So I mean, as you can see, it seemed like even in places like companies like Toshiba, they're trying to transition into like the sustainable city where everyone's mentioning, you know, let's go abroad, let's go communities, let's go cities. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's nice. Those usually run about 5 or 10 grand a minute. We're doing this on the fly. That's why we're not quite as polished. So, but yeah, I like this. It's certainly because our principal job is not education. Our principal job is to mark up documents, get them voted on, hang with them for 6 to 9 years, and come home with $100 million to $1 billion. That's kind of what we do. So we're not in the business of education, and we hope that others will pick up some of what we have to say here. So next week, along those lines, we're going to talk about the tough stuff next week. How do you support a subject matter expert? We've heard our CEs talk about participation, but the end market user and infrastructure market is virtually unpresent in any organized way. We're about the best organized, as best I can tell, been doing this for nearly 20 years. We're the most organized way of exerting and using our markets, our industry's $300 billion footprint to try to convey our economic interests. I often feel that I'm like the salesman who does not want to reveal the price so I can retain the leverage before the customer places a bid. That's very often a bidding strategy. Don't make the other person guess first. But at some point, I do have to lay out what the facts are. So we'll go into some detail about what it takes to get what I call a strong vote for the user interest. It's not terribly expensive compared to what you bring in, but it's still something that middle management struggles with. Again, standards move slowly, because they are by nature collaborative, but mostly because they're run by so-called volunteers. Now, again, I've said that volunteers are in the user interest. Everybody else is getting paid. That's why we struggle. So we'll have the benefit of a colleague of mine, been with us for quite a while, David Flint, who's on one of the ASME A17 committees, elevator committees. And We will get some insight into how those committees are structured, who's been there for a while, and what kind of leverage they have. So I guess to close out here, what we've been looking at here for a number of years is basically 100,000 to 1 return on investment. In any other industry, that would be grasped with both hands, but really it hasn't gotten through to our industry. Unlike private industry, our industries can miss an opportunity with impunity, and I think many of you are seeing that in your child's college tuition bill. So I think that's pretty much it. Anything else? You want to close this one out for a Friday afternoon, Christine?
Certainly, Mike. Just one other reflection is that our viewers may note or begin to note that our weekly teleconferences ebb and flow kind of like a zoom on a camera from the work point and then to the more global view of standards. So we are constantly adjusting our camera lens to zoom in and then to zoom out. And so hopefully that provides a wide look as well as a narrow focus on this very complex world of standards development. So some housekeeping as well. If you are interested in attending the ANSI CEO presentation at the University of Michigan Ross School of Business, please join us on September 25th here on campus or also remotely to view ANSI CEO Joe Bhatia's presentation. You can receive an invitation by sending me an email at chrisfis, CHRISFIS, @umich.edu. My address is also available at the Standards Michigan webpage, and I'll be happy to send you an invitation. And again, as I mentioned, you will also be able to attend remotely. There will be a webinar link provided in that invitation as well as available at our website. You can click on the UM Welcomes ANSI 2015 link and you will find a plethora of information. Joe Bhatia's presentation will be open to the education facilities industry as well as the local University of Michigan community and general public. We look forward to a robust attendance on September 25th at 2 p.m. Thank you very much for viewing our teleconference, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you, and have a good weekend.